Good and godly nations are built from the inside out and the bottom up, right? You don't enforce values and things from the top down with the magic man theory who can change and fix everything. It starts inside the hearts of men and women with the gospel that transforms the person. And then the person with the transformed heart has a mind that sees the world the way that God sees it and begins to transform families and then churches and communities and work their way out, raising up young people who become leaders in our communities and in our nation, right? That's why I'm so glad we're here, because we're dealing with foundational issues when we talk about marriage. If change doesn't begin at the White House or at your house, it's happening every day at your dinner table. With those little pairs of eyes looking up at you, those little people who call you mom and dad, and they're looking to you for answers about who they are and whose they are and why they're here and where they're going and how to live. And you and I have this awesome privilege and responsibility to teach them. If family is the foundation of a great nation, then marriage is the cornerstone of that foundation. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And I want to ask you this question. If the cornerstone of the foundation of the whole thing is marriage, I want to ask you what you believe is the number one threat to marriage today. What's the number one thing that pulls marriages down? Now, while you're thinking about that, I'm just going to give you a quick summary of why marriage. I mean, there's some people who would just say, "Why do we get married? My God, let's just live together. Let's have some kids if you feel like it. Whenever you want to have that, we're tired of cats and dogs. Let's have a couple kids, right? And let's just not do the marriage thing. It's fraught with problems." Well, some of us get married thinking it's a great idea, but it's not thought through beyond, "Hey, wow, you're gorgeous. Yeah, you're the man, right? We're having a great time together. You just keep paying the bills, and you just keep looking gorgeous, and we'll keep this party rolling for 50 years. Right? We just think this is this euphoria that just, happens effortlessly forever. But we look at the story of the Bible, and we see that God starts us out where he's creating something out of nothing, and he creates a world that I like to look at as a three-story house or a triple-decker universe. And he creates the waters. And out of the waters, he separates the waters with a firmament, the sky. And then lifts land, separating it out of the waters of the sea, creating this three-story house where, if you can visualize it with me, you have the sky, the land, the sea, or the attic, the main floor, and the basement. Right? And then he fills those three stories on subsequent days with sun, moon, and stars, and clouds, and everything in the sky, like birds, animals, beasts of the field, and then swimming creatures in the sea. And then he creates another creature that is distinct from all the others and puts him in the main floor. Right? Now this isn't a creature, notice, that evolved and creeped up out of the ocean. This isn't something that flew in from outer space and landed. This isn't an overarching worm that eventually became you and me, who can create iPhones and church buildings and things. This is a creature formed out of the dust of the ground. God breathes life into this creature, calls him man. His name is Adam of the earth. And he says that he will bear the image of the Creator. No one else does that. Nothing else does that. It bears the image of God. And then he gives him this great mission. I'm sorry, he first gives him a responsibility of naming all the other animals. Now, with that, there is a massive amount of authority that is being bestowed upon Adam. Right? Brother, what's your name? Gary. What if I told you your name's Peter from now on? You'd kind of look at me like, whoa, who do you think you are telling me my name's Peter? What if I told you then to turn around and tell every other person in this room their name? Right? And then we'll start renaming all the animals. Gary's going to be like, wow, don't think that's above my pay grade, right? I don't have the authority to do that, right? Adam was given the authority to name everything. And he's naming animals, recently been noticing the difference between male and female, male dogs and female dogs, right? Male ducks and female ducks. And as he's doing this for a few hours, what must have been blatantly obvious to him at this point in this game of categorization? Where's mother? Right? Where is she? Where is the female complement to me? Don't see one. That's the point in the story where God says it is not good that man is alone. And then he drops out into this deep sleep, opens up his side, removes some flesh or a rib, and creates woman from man. And then takes her and brings him to him, and they become one flesh. We read that in Genesis. So here's one man, made in the image of God, broken in two, so to speak. The two come back together as one, and their oneness is seen most clearly in the union of the two of them, their child. Man, woman, child. There's a picture of humanity right there. And within that, God then says to the two of them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. That's code for have lots and lots of babies. Right? Fill my creation with children, and then take dominion over the birds of the air and the beasts of the field and the fish of the sea. Take dominion, that is to rule, to govern over all that I have made with your children for the glory of God and the blessing of all people. Right? So just as heaven, I believe, is the pattern for the Garden of Eden, that perfect paradise that they were living in without sin and communion with God, the garden was to be the pattern for the whole rest of the world as they carried out this great mission of filling it and governing it. In other words, take the boundaries of the garden, Adam and Eve, push them all the way out until the edges wrap around the globe and touch on the other side. And then we find that picture in Isaiah where the knowledge of the Lord fills the land like the waters fill the seas. Right? So this great assignment to heavenize the world. Right? Jesus said, may your kingdom come, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Right? This whole great assignment, the great mission, notice, to bring heaven to earth, was not given to a government. That's important. Think about that. It was not even given to a church. It was given to a family. A mom and a dad and children. And through them, they were to carry it out. And it's those healthy, godly families that will then make up healthy, godly churches. And churches make up and influence communities that then together raise up young children with morality and virtue and understanding of who God is, who then take on positions of leadership. Right? That's how it's supposed to work. And the whole thing starts with that bedrock foundation of a healthy marriage. That's why I'm excited that we're here to talk about it. So let me go back to my first question. What is the greatest threat to marriages today? What's the biggest area of challenge in your marriage? It's making it so hard. What's the category? What is it? Somebody tell me. Communication. Finances. All right. Absolutely. These are challenging areas. But you know what? I think that these are both baby problems in comparison to the mother problem who gave birth to them. I think the mother problem that spawns all the other challenges in our marriage is the problem of selfishness. Selfishness, right? Because I bet there was a time, I know there was a time in my marriage where, I could sit with my wife for hours, not say a word, and we could communicate our feelings just fine. How about you? Right? And there may have been a time in your relationship where you didn't have a whole lot of money, but that wasn't a problem. You could sit on the floor with a pizza box in a rented apartment with no furniture, and you were singing that song. Even though it ain't got money, I'm so in love with money, everything. Right? Because she was your treasure, and he was that priceless gift that God had given you. But now, finances are a problem. Communication is such a struggle. Why? Well, because something's poisoned these things, and I believe it's selfishness. And when it's no longer, I want to serve you, honey, and it becomes, hey, when is the little bit going to start coming this way, right? I have needs too. How about giving me what I deserve, right? and we start focusing on our rights in a relationship, all we're doing is promoting a rebellion. Just give it time. But if we're talking about our responsibilities in the relationship, we promote a revival in our marriage. Selfishness is the beast that needs to be killed. I'll say it another way. The heart of the problem in marriage is the problem of the heart. The Bible says in Jeremiah 17, verse 9, that is the heart of the human problem. The problem of the human heart. The heart is deceitful above all things, the Bible says, and desperately wicked. And only God can cure that selfish heart. How many of you saw the movie Fireproof? Just raise your hand. Oh, wow. Okay. A lot of you. In Fireproof, Captain Caleb Holt was on the brink of divorce. Relationship was just, it tanked. It was horrible, right? I mean, he's spending all his time at work. He's just an angry man, and she is a woman who was completely disconnected from him, considering seeing another man. And do you remember, he got plenty of good counsel from his dad on how to save his doomed marriage when his dad gave him a 40-day journey called The Love Dare. That book, challenging him to show love to his wife unconditionally for 40 days. And do you remember, his initial attempt at The Love Dare was a complete failure with no positive results. In fact, it made him even more angry with his wife after about the 4th day. Right? The turning point in Fireproof was not The Love Dare. The turning point was when God got hold of that man's heart at the cross and transformed it. Then The Love Dare served as a way for him to demonstrate to his wife how God had changed him into a new man and begin showing love to her in a practical way. Please hear me on this. If there's nothing else you remember for this whole conference, if you're planning on just checking out because it's a Sunday night and you've had a long weekend, hey, that's okay. I can almost sleep in church too. Just close your eyes and bow your head and everybody just think you're praying. Give me 60 seconds, all right? Here it is. You can learn all the tips and techniques in the world about how to have a great marriage. You can read all the books and do the Love Dare and learn her love language and fill the love tanks and the love banks and visit Dr. Phil, Dr. Ruth, Dr. Laura, spend all this time and all this money. But here it is. If you do not have a supernatural transformation of your selfish heart by the Spirit of God through faith in the one He sent to save and rescue you, you're wasting your time and money. I'm not trying to get up in your business and give you a big sermon this evening, but what I'm saying is that I know you want to have a great marriage. And if the problem is not really communication of finances or your wife or your husband, but it's a problem of your selfish heart, if that's your problem, then Dr. Ruth, Dr. Phil, Dr. Laura won't help you. You need to pay a visit to the only qualified soul doctor in the universe, and his name is